Recording in progress.
Welcome to the January 16th, 2025 Planning Commission hearing. I will call the hearing to order at 1:03 p.m. Ms. Esparza, can we please have a roll call vote?
Thank you, Commissioner Wardlow. Commissioner Bauke is absent. Commissioner Wardlow?
Here.
Commissioner Barnwell?
Here.
Commissioner Boss?
Present.
Commissioner DeLuccio?
I am here.
Commissioner Peterson? And Commissioner Wiscombe?
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. The first topic on our agenda today is the nomination and elections of our chair and vice chair. I will open the floor to nominations for chair now, and then we'll open nominations for vice chair. Would anyone like to make a nomination for chair?
I'd like to nominate Commissioner or Vice Chair Wardlow for chair, and may I nominate, at the same time, nominate Commissioner Boss for vice chair?
Sure.
And I'll second that.
All right. Do we have any other nominations for chair or vice chair?
Chair, Vice Chair Wardlow, if I could just make sure, we had a second, but I don't think Commissioner actually made the motion, so if you can just confirm that the nomination was a motion.
Yes, the nomination was a motion for Vice Chair Wardlow for chair and Commissioner Boss for vice
And
chair.
I'll second that.
All right. Well, thank you. Ms. Barza, can we please have a roll call vote?
Of course. Commissioner Boss?
Yes.
Commissioner DeLuccio?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson? Yes. Commissioner Barnwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wardlow?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm very excited to serve as chair for 2025 alongside Commissioner Boss. That brings us to Section B. I'll move on to preliminary matters, requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or ex-agenda items. Ms. Arciniega, do we have any?
As noted on the agenda, we do have the cancellation of your second item on Farella Road.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to announcements and appeals. Do we have any announcements or appeals?
Thank you, Chair Wardlow. We do just want to welcome Commissioner Peterson to the Planning Commission. He takes Commissioner Lodge's place. So thank you for joining us.
Welcome, Commissioner Peterson. We are so excited to have you. And we have one other announcement. It is Commissioner Wiscombe's birthday. Happy birthday, Commissioner Wiscombe. Busy day. And with that, we will move on. That brings us to item D, review, consideration, and action on the following draft Planning Commission minutes and resolutions. First, for the December 12th, 2024 Planning Commission minutes, then for the December 19th Planning Commission minutes, and the Planning Commission resolution number 015-24 for 119 Harbor Way. Are there any Planning Commissioner comments on the minutes or resolutions?
I'll move all that information.
I'll second it.
Wonderful. Can I have a motion? That's it? Okay, great. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. Commissioner DeLuccio?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe?
Yes.
Vice Chair Boss?
Yes.
And Chair Wardlow?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. And that takes us to item E, comments from members of the public pertaining to items that are not on today's agenda. Due to time constraints, we will limit each person's public comment to 2 minutes. Ms. Esparza, do we have any in-person or remote that would like to give public comment?
Thank you, Chair Wardlow. We do have some speaker slips already, so we'll go through those. In the meantime, if there's anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on general business, then please fill out a speaker slip and turn it into staff. First, we'll have Rose Wills, followed by Charlie Boss.
Good afternoon, Planning Commissioners. My name is Rose Wills. At the December 19th, 2024 appeal hearing for 1269 Farella Road, the Planning Commission, the applicant's attorney, along with the Assistant City Attorney, all agreed to continue the appeal hearing to today, January 16th. The January 16th meeting was designated a continuance, not a new meeting. This meeting should be allowed to proceed. We were unfairly deprived of a hearing on our appeal. On January 13th, this last Monday, the Assistant City Attorney declared that the city had erred and did not meet the deadline set forth in the Permit Streamlining Act. She unilaterally proceeded to cancel the continuance for January 16th without consultation with the Planning Commission or the appellant. This is wrong. This action violates my and my neighbors' due process and civil rights, and it undermines the public trust. Any unreasonable delay has been caused by the applicant's continued failure to comply with mandatory conditions. We, the Farello-Rubio neighborhood, request from the Planning Commission that the Planning Commission set this entire matter for a hearing to consider what needs to be done and that the city not issue any building permits until this is sorted out. The city must fix this process. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll now have our next public commenter.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Charlie Boss, followed by Bill Dillon.
Good morning, or good afternoon, Commissioners. My name's Charlie Boss. I'm neighbor to this project that isn't going to be heard today, 1269 Farello Road. I would just like to say that, kind of reiterate what was said. We're in the middle of that hearing, our appeal, and I think it's unreasonable and unfair that we didn't be denied the continuance that was scheduled for today. I feel like we're not being conceded our due process. So I'm asking that permits not be issued for this project. I think that more things need to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Bill Dillon, followed by Consuelo Benavides.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Bill Dillon representing Rose Wills and Mike Marzola. I submitted to you a letter, and I apologize it came in a bit late. I missed the Tuesday 4:30 deadline. I understand it has been distributed. It's a 6.5-page letter, so it's quite a bit there, but it raises important issues. Essentially, we disagree with the city attorney's conclusion, and among other things, I don't think the city has not violated the Permit Streamlining Act. The PDA was a final decision under the design board guidelines. It's clearly specified. And when the city took final action on that, when the city council action, I think was April of 23, formal resolution in August, that ended that process. That was a final decision. Then flips over into the substantial conformity process. Again, it's a different process, different application, and a different review. So when you sort that out, the application in front of you now is filed on September, I think 27 was the date mentioned in my letter. You had design board approval within a month of that. You had this commission meet in December, and if you'd made action or taken final action in December, that would have been within the 60 days called for in the statute. That's also 60 days from application completeness and CEQA determination, so there might be a little more time in there for action. Having said all of that, you weren't given any advice or warning that this was about to happen. I believe you probably would have made a final decision in December if you'd been alerted to this. My experience is public officials get their job done when it matters, and you have to. So our main request today is to set it for hearing. The Brown Act is real clear. 54954.23 says on matters on public comment, you can respond by asking questions, and also, among other things, ordering staff to set it for hearing at a future date. If there's any questions on that long letter, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Consuelo Benavides, followed by Derek Booth.
Hello again. Consuelo Benavides, and I live right next to the project that will be starting soon, I guess. It's been very, very frustrating, and I have to say for myself, and I'm sure the rest, that I feel as a neighbor and a homeowner that I've had no rights. The things that I've mentioned in all of my letters, health, I had cancer that I'm now in remission, but with all the building and materials and different things, that's an issue. My husband has COPD plus other issues. Privacy, a third story. It's unheard of in the Riviera area that there's a third story looking right down into our bedroom and da-da-da-da-da-da. The size of the home is 3 times larger than our home. We have a structure of merit, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that we've tried to preserve a home in Santa Barbara by the Moody sisters and, just want to preserve Santa Barbara, and it doesn't matter. As a homeowner, my husband for 30 years, other neighbors 40 years, it doesn't matter that they're losing their privacy and everything else. I don't know what else to say except that I really appreciate your time and listening to me, and I apologize that I've said things over and over again. All we were asking was to move the box with the air conditioning that out of the way so it's not at our bedroom, but no, it's not going to matter. To have the setbacks of the decks farther away, a little bit away, a few feet away, no, it doesn't matter. So what matters for we homeowners that have been good neighbors? I don't know, maybe you can come up with some answers for the next person. That would be really lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Derek Booth, followed by C. Newhouser.
Commissioners, it's good to see you again, and greetings to the new member. What I actually want to talk about is why this has engendered such neighborhood concern, especially myself and my wife. We live around the corner on Rubio Road. We don't actually see this property. And it's probably best demonstrated by a new proposal that has just come in on Garcia Road, which is, if you don't know the Lower Riviera, it's kind of the twin of Farillo Road, the other way down the hill. This is an older one-story house on the downhill side of the street, actually one house in from a horseshoe bend, an understory, and the application is for a add third floor primary bedroom suite. So I want to be clear that in our judgment and how we've seen this unfold, whatever happens to 1269 is going to set a precedent, and it's going to set a precedent for the entire Lower Riviera. And if by whatever means this project is approved, it will be a fairly clear message that it's now open season on this neighborhood, and that what was once a neighborhood design where the uphill houses look over the downhill houses and everybody has a very nice view, will probably be lost forever, one house at a time, and maybe not all in our lifetimes. But this is going to be precedent setting, and we heard the architect at 1269 speak again and again about how their house was just following the precedent that had already been set in the neighborhood. That isn't actually true, but if this project goes forward, it will be true. And there are now concrete examples of exactly how that may play out. I wish you the best in deciding how to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Booth.
Thank you. Next, we have C. Newhouser.
Hi, I walk that neighborhood. I live down the street, closer to Milpas Street. But what I think is more alarming and is more precedent-setting is the fact that because of whatever everyone leans on, that's all Sacramento's fault, that the precedent that's really set is that the builder can show up 5 times with erroneous information, be told to go back and bring back the corrected information, which was done at the last hearing, and still get, pass go, collect $200. So it doesn't matter, that he does the information right. I know we've all been at hearings where the people said, no, we didn't change our plans. Well, we told you you should change your plans, you should do this. Well, we didn't do it. And so they can show up 5 times if that's what this situation was. And again, do whatever they want. And it just seems that that's the thing that's precedent setting that's really bad. You know, the wall, the city saying what did they say, that their program wasn't as good as the architects, so they went with the architects. And when you all said to them, well, go back to the drawing board and really bring us the right numbers, and they didn't bring you anything. They just said, we'll bring you an attorney and we'll do what we want. So, thank you.
Thank you. I do not have any more in-person speaker slips, so turning to Zoom, if there's anyone participating virtually who'd like to speak on general business, please raise your hand and we can call on you. Not seeing any raised hands on Zoom, so I'll state for the record that we did receive written correspondence from Derek Booth and William Dillon on behalf of Rose Wills and Michael Marzola, which was distributed to the commission prior to the meeting. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Chair Wardlow. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you all for being here today. We hear you on your concerns. We do have to defer to the city attorney's office, but thank you for your continued engagement on this. And with that, I will close general public comment, and we will move on to item 3, 2020 Chapala Street, a request to initiate a zoning map amendment to consider changing the zoning of the subject site from office restricted to commercial general. We have Barbara Buckhart with us to provide a staff presentation. Ms. Buckhart, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Wardlow, members of the commission. Happy to present this project to you today. I'll start with the vicinity map. Our site is here in yellow. It's on Chapala Street, just here above West Mission, just south of Padre. It's in between State and De La Vina. This map is showing just an aerial view, so you can see kind of the Mission Park, Cottage Hospital, and then these more densely used areas, commercial areas on State Street that are nearby. And over here, this is that intersection of Mission and De La Vina, which is a heavier commercial area. The site has a general plan land use designation of commercial, medium, high density residential, and a zoning classification of office restricted. Existing development includes a church building here at the front. This is an addition that came later on, but it's all one building. It's a single story. There's a detached accessory building behind it. It's also a single story. And then there's a 17-space parking lot at the rear. The existing use, it's a funeral parlor and interment services use. McDermott Crockett Associates and Mortuary is the business operating there. They've maintained business licenses since 2011 in this location. Right here, real quickly, I just want to clarify that a business license is not a permit to operate a use on a site, but I'm going to come back to that in a little more detail later on. But I do want to also point out that they have maintained their business licenses in good faith, as they're supposed to do, since opening business on this site. The initiation request before you today is for a zoning map and zoning ordinance amendment, kind of referred to as a rezone more casually. It would be to change the zoning from the office restricted to commercial general. And just for the site here, as you can see, the office restricted is just these sites right here, a little island in this area. And so this piece would go, the request is for this section only to be commercial general. The rezone is requested by the applicant to allow a funeral parlors and interment services use on the site, as it's not currently allowed in the zone. This issue was only recently discovered through the latest round of state licensing, and the applicant is now trying to remedy that situation. So Planning Commission's action could be to initiate the rezone if you found it appropriate to study. You could also recommend additional zoning classifications to study as well, or you could decline to initiate the rezone. If you do decide to initiate the rezone, the next steps for the applicant would be to submit a formal planning application. We would write another report for you and bring it back to a public hearing at the Planning Commission, where you would make a recommendation to City Council. And then City Council would hold a public hearing, and they would either approve, revise, or deny the rezone. And ultimately, the rezone would need to be found consistent with the city's plan, the city's general plan. I want to real quickly go over a history of zone changes for the site. It's a little confusing. So this slide is just a real quick summary, but really what we're attempting to show you here is that the request to rezone the site to commercial general is essentially a request to revert it back to the original zoning that it held in 1957. At that time, it was split zoned. It was two-family residential and commercial. It's now called C2, or it was called C2 at that time. It's now called CG, but it's the same zone. And then beginning in 1972, there were a series of kind of unusual zoning changes to the site, and I'll walk through those real quickly because they relate to the exhibits of the staff report. So your Exhibit C shows the site in 1957. It was split zone, like I just mentioned, to family residence and commercial. The site is kind of here in the middle. In 1972, the site was rezoned to restricted office to allow for an office use in the church and accessory buildings. There wasn't a condition of approval placed on this rezone that's mentioned in the staff report, so I just want to clarify it right now. The condition said that if the church building were to be removed from the site, the zone would need to be changed back to just two-family residence. That condition no longer applies. It's just kind of information for you in the staff report. Now the church has a historic designation of a city landmark. It would be very hard to remove that church. It would require approval of the Historic Landmarks Commission. Your Exhibit E shows that in 1973, a citywide zoning amendment established the restricted office zone as an overlay for the site. And at that time, the two-family residence zone was established as the base zone for the site, kind of to keep in compliance with that condition of approval I just mentioned. And your Exhibit F shows that in 2013, a general plan update included a citywide effort to eliminate those split zone parcels, so that at that time, the two-family residence zone was eliminated from the site, and that left the restricted office zone as the base zone. And this was decided as the most appropriate zone of the two because it allowed for a higher residential density, which was most consistent with the general plan land use designation of this site. And then just one other point of clarification. In 2017, a new zoning ordinance was adopted by the city. It's called Title 30 and replaces Title 28 in inland zones. And this is where these zones got renamed. So C2 became CG and RO became OR. So just a little change in language. Looking at zoning classification, the existing zone of the site here is office restricted. This zone is most appropriate for areas of the city with a land use designation of, a general plan land use designation of office medium density residential. The general plan describes that as office and medical office uses primarily in the Cottage Hospital area, which I've outlined in yellow here. You can see our site is down here. So the requested zone is commercial general. It's most appropriate for areas of the city that have a land use designation of commercial, medium, high density residential. So again, you'll see these areas in yellow on this zoning map. Here's our site. And on this side, we're looking at the general plan land use designation. This area includes our site, and it's described in the general plan here as State Street from Haley to just past Mission Street. So it's captured within that area. So for that reason, we do feel it's the most appropriate zone for this land use designation. Sorry, I'm losing my page in my notes here. So because of this, staff does feel the requested rezone is appropriate to study, as it would be consistent with the city's general plan. I also want to point out that residential and office uses would still be allowed on the site with this new zone. Your Exhibit G shows land use regulations as they're outlined in the municipal code, which shows that these residential uses, office uses would still be allowed. Community assembly, which is the church use, would still be allowed. And then, which is good news for the applicant, is that funeral parlors and interment services would be allowed. The commercial general zone is generally a bit more permissive than the restricted office zone. Lastly, your Exhibit H shows development standards outlined in the municipal code. The differences between the OR zone and the CG zone are really limited to height and setback regulations. Everything else is the same. The site is compliant with both of these regulations in both zones, so not an issue. Parking standards are regulated by land use, and we would analyze parking for this use on this site if the rezone is initiated. It's likely that an off-site parking agreement would be needed. In terms of environmental review, the initiation request itself is exempt from CEQA per section 15306, which is just information collection that allows us to study the rezone. Subsequent environmental review would take place prior to City Council consideration and action. And staff recommends that the Planning Commission initiate the zoning map and zoning ordinance amendment to rezone the subject site from office restricted to commercial general. This initiation is not meant to imply any approval of or formal position on the proposed rezone, other than acknowledging it can move forward for study and environmental review. With that, I'll conclude my presentation. I do want to let you know that the project applicant, Heidi Jones, is not here today. She's pretty sick. So in her place, we have Jennifer Park, who is the mortuary manager. She can introduce herself, and she's here to answer any questions you may have for her. And with that, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Buckhart, for this presentation. With that, we will now hear from the applicant, Jennifer Park, who will be speaking on behalf of the applicant. And please state your full name and your relationship to the project for the record, and you will have 15 minutes to present.
My name's Jennifer Parks. I've been the manager at McDermott Crockett Mortuary since we've been in this location, and prior to that, I've been with Mortuary for 20 years. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, but I think that Barbara presented what we need pretty succinctly, and but happy to answer anything that may come up for you.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here on behalf of the applicant. And you do have more time to speak if you'd like to later on after commissioners have questions and deliberations. With that, that takes us to public comment. So do we have any members of the public that would like to make comments pertaining to this specific item? Mrs. Barza?
Thank you, Chair Wardlow. I don't have any speaker slips, but I think I have someone eager at the podium
Sorry,
here.
I'm having a lot of trouble hearing with, just let me, I'm William Rogers. We have lived at 25 West Padre since 1980. We have no objection to the rezone. We are concerned about parking. Parking is a serious matter. There's a lot of, I'm not sure what the new zone requirements are, but we would hope you would consider the parking impact on the neighborhood. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments, or is anyone remote?
Thank you, Chair Wardlow. I'll turn to virtual public comment. If there's anyone joining on Zoom who'd like to speak on this item, please raise your hand. I do have Heidi Jones who would like to speak, so let me go ahead and allow her permission.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. This is Heidi Jones. I apologize that I can't be there today. I wanted to thank staff for their thorough and complete staff report and thank Jennifer Parks, the GM of McDermott Crockett, for taking the lead in my absence. We feel like this request is pretty straightforward, reasonable, and much needed, and we hope you support the initiation. And I apologize that I can't be there today. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any more speakers on Zoom, so I'll state for the record that we did receive written correspondence from Miguel Avila, Raul Bastarachea, Judy Manenberg Goldman, James Gonzalez, and Kate Carter, which was distributed to the commission prior to the meeting. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Chair Wardlow. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open it up to my fellow commissioners for questions. I see Commissioner DeLucia would like to go first.
You have two questions. Maybe staff or the applicant can answer the question. I'm reading a letter that there's a facility on Milpas and Canamedillo. Is it the intent to consolidate the two operations?
Yes. That is our current decedent care facility, and it would be eliminated if this were.
And the other question is, I know you currently have an operation there and 17 parking spaces. How are you accommodating those spaces when you have overflow crowds?
Currently, we do employ valet service when necessary, and we are in the process of exploring parking opportunities, off-site parking.
And when you do come back with this to proceed with the zone change, is there another application you're going to be coming forward with also? Any other changes?
Changes?
Besides changing the zone, is the application, at some point you're going to file an application to do a zone change?
Correct.
If we decide this today, it's fine to proceed with that. And when you do come back, is it just for the zone change, or are there other things you're going to be asking for?
Just for the zone change at this point.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
That's correct. Thank you. And now we'll hear from Vice Chair Boss.
Thank you, Chair Wardlow. Just a question for staff. I understand that that what initiated this change was the state licensing process. So what, I guess, process do we now have in place to identify anything else that might need to be rezoned?
I am not sure quite what the process is. Typically, the business license process is not involved planning directly. It's a tax license. It involves, just the financial aspect of running a business, but planning is not currently involved in that process.
Okay, so we don't have a process. So there may be other instances of this, and it'll just come to us at some point? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Boss. And now Commissioner Wiscombe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to go back to the parking for a minute. So if we were to make a recommendation to City Council on the initiation request, positively to change the zone, can we condition it with, I'm concerned about the parking, and maybe Ms. Parks can answer this. Are you actually actively in negotiations with outside parking facilities to park cars, or, because that seems to be the big concern, and can we condition, the second part of that is, can we condition the initiation to have a successful end to, because you have said, Ms. Burkhart, that likely they're going to have a parking agreement.
Correct. They do not appear to have the parking on site that they would need if this was to become an allowed use for this site. So we would certainly be looking at that stage. The applicant team is aware of this discrepancy. They are working on an off-site parking agreement already. But of course, they're not going to follow through. We're waiting to find out today if the rezone is initiated. But we will definitely be studying that, and they would definitely be working to remedy any inconsistency with the zoning.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, do you have something to say, Ms. Parks? Because I I kind of asked you the question, but I think it kind of got answered.
No, I just.
So you're actively pursuing?
We are.
Okay. So if we were to make a recommendation to city council for the initiation request, can we condition it with adequate parking, or?
Today,
Or is that
we're
the
looking
cart
for
before
you
the
to
horse?
just initiate the rezone, and we don't need to go to city council for that part. If you do initiate the rezone today, we will start processing the formal planning application for the rezone, and we would bring that back to you. And as part of that, we'll bring you a staff report, and we'll talk about how the project complies with the current use, how the current use complies with zoning, and part of that will be how do they comply with parking requirements.
Okay, because that's already in the staff report, that they're not
It will be, and if we come
but
back.
you already have it in here, that their parking is inadequate for the rezone.
Correct. It
Yeah.
is inadequate for the use, so the use just isn't allowed yet. So if we study that.
So it is the cart before the horse, okay.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, so you bring it back to us, because I thought it
Correct.
said here that we conduct a public hearing for purpose of making a recommendation to city council. So
That would be the next step.
So it goes, so we initiate it, then it comes back to us, and then it goes to city
Correct.
council with our final recommendation.
Correct.
Okay, and at that point, we can discuss parking
Correct.
in more detail.
Yes.
Okay, I get it now, thank you. I'm
Sure.
sorry.
Oh, no problem.
I made it more complicated than it had to be, but I think that is a concern, so, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiscombe, and Commissioner DeLucio again.
I apologize, I probably jumped ahead a little bit on the parking situation, but now I'm curious, when you have the valet, where does the overflow parking, where do they take the overflow parking?
We've been in this location for 15 years. The instance of needing a valet or off-site parking with larger crowds has been, I can think of twice in my tenure there. Although the chapel is very small, we can't accommodate huge crowds. So I don't know where the valets park their cars, but I've employed them, and it's not been an issue. I haven't had any neighbor complaints. Nobody's called me to say that they were upset about anybody gathering. And the other part of it is that the time period in which they spend there is very short, typically not more than 2 hours.
Thank you.
So.
Any other questions from fellow commissioners? No? Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you. So, trying to understand this better. You've been there for 15 years, is that correct? And do you have any expectation that if this goes through the whole process and you do get the rezone, do you know or have any expectation on how much your business will increase? Or will there be significant more activity there if you're able to consolidate the two?
I think that we'll be operating this over 100-year-old business the way we have I've been with the company for 20 years. We were on Pedregosa and State and then on De La Vina, and been in this location since August of 2009. I don't see the business, the public gathering any more than they currently do. We just wanted to get in compliance with, we're a funeral home.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we have the right permits and things in place, since we do take care of decedents. So I don't expect anything in terms of gatherings to be any more than they have been over the last 10 years.
Okay.
Great. Oh. It's fine with me if you'd like to come make up a comment.
It is true they've been there for 15 years, and when they have a service with the old church building, it definitely aggravates the parking on Padre Street. We've never complained about it because it's a religious service and it's a memorial service, and it's all fine. I mean, But obviously, a commercial zone is going to be prone to have more parking. I have no idea how to predict how much. But if it's considered by you folks in the process, that's all I'm asking. It's bound to increase. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and with that, I will turn to Commissioner deliberations. So who would like to go first on any comments? And I ask that commissioners just keep it to comments, and then we will move to a motion after everyone has given their feedback. First, we have Commissioner Wiscombe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I very briefly, I support the recommendation to initiate the zoning change from OR zone to CG zone. And I'm glad it's coming back to us so we can resolve any concerns about parking, and we'll do so at that time. But I can support, thank you. And I, just to add, I'm sorry, just to add, I really appreciate all the public comment we got on this, the letters that we got from people. It's nice to see positive letters, letters of support, and the efforts that the public made towards that was really quite stunning. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiscombe, and Vice Chair Boss.
Thank you. I'm also supportive of the request to initiate the amendment, and just want to thank the applicant. You have a really challenging work and role, and just appreciate because it's a really valuable service. So thank you, and I'm glad to see you hopefully continue the service in this area.
Thank you, Commissioner Boss. And now Commissioner DeLuccio.
Yeah, I'm supportive of initiating the rezoning, and when it does come back, we can address any parking, and I'm still curious, not today, about Milpas and Cannabidio, the consolidation onto the Chapala site, so maybe that's something we can address also when it comes back. I'll just make sure that's not going to become an intensification of use.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you. No, I will also support the initiation of the rezone. One of my questions perhaps to staff is how often do we see these kinds of applications, to try to change zoning to meet the current use? In other words, revert back to what was originally zoned here. Do we see these applications often?
I don't think so. And it's not typical for us to do a rezone specifically to allow a certain business to operate on a site. In this case, it is a more appropriate zone for the land use. It happens to work for the applicant, and they're using it as a way to remedy their current dilemma. So it kind of works for both.
And when businesses discover this, and they need to be licensed with the state, is there any kind of ministerial process by which they can initiate the zoning change? I know we have to hear the final.
An applicant can request the initiation. That's what's happening here today. So yes, anyone could initiate it. It ultimately needs to conform to the general plan, but they could request the initiation.
What I mean to ask is does this always need to come back to Planning Commission, or is there any ministerial process for this?
Oh, I don't know of a ministerial process for a rezone.
Okay.
Sorry, Commissioner Peterson, are you saying this hearing or this process right now, could this step be
Yes, this step.
a smaller step? I think, so one option is it could be like a consent item since it is fairly administrative. That is a portion on our agenda. In more recent history, the commission's had an interest in discussing these items and just, the implications and that. So staff did choose to put it on as a full agenda item. If the commission desires in the future these requests be on the consent, we can certainly make that change in the future.
That's what I was somewhat interested in knowing, because, I don't mean to interpret the will of folks here, but, at the site visit, it seemed pretty intuitive that, hey, at least this process, we do need to change this. We need to move in the direction of getting it to commercial in order for this business to continue, and it's reverting back to what it was. I don't know if there's a desire to put something like this in the future on a consent agenda because staff did use a lot of their time and resources to get us this.
Happy to have a discussion with the commission if we'd like. I'll move to Commissioner DeLuccio.
Well, I actually thought of it in a different way. From my past experience, typically, it'd be a little more streamlined than this. What would come before us would be the initiation of what they want to do, not first asking, can they do it? Are we going to permit it to be done? If they want to, they would come to us, and then obviously it's up to I think in this situation, it has to go to the council anyway for final approval, whether it's on a consent calendar or not. I think city council makes final decisions on zoning changes, correct? So I would prefer it to come to us and not on a consent, but have a discussion, but not, I would like to have seen it in a more streamlined manner where it got initiated and then came before us, and we did all our business at the same time, and then made our decision, and then forwarded it on to city council.
Thank you, Commissioner DeLuccio, and Commissioner Wiscombe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to see it come back to us. I agree with Commissioner Peterson that I think there's sometimes, we don't see rezones very often. I don't recollect in the last 8 years that I've seen one, but at any rate, but in this particular case, I think the parking is an issue. So I think not having it on consent will be helpful to bring that back with a more thorough discussion of the parking. But I do agree that we can look at ways to truncate the process for all involved staff and for applicants. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiscombe. Do I have any other comments from any other commissioners? I'll just give two bits of feedback. I'm definitely supportive of this requested initiation for the rezone. I think this is really about bringing a property up to compliance with what the surrounding neighborhood has. Most of it is general commercial, so I don't see this as an issue. And obviously, you've been a very long-standing business in this community, and we want to be supportive of that. To the point of my fellow commissioners, we will talk about the parking impacts and all of that at the next hearing when this comes back to us. And I do really appreciate the positive public comments from the community that weighed in on this. To Commissioner Peterson's point, I appreciate the effort to keep things streamlined and move things forward. I do agree with Commissioner Wiscombe that we don't really see these often, so it's unlikely that we'll have this be a reoccurring thing, but I think you are in the right headspace, that if this were to start to happen often, that we could consider looking at more streamlined ways of approaching it. But this is the first time I'm seeing something like this as well, so I don't think we'll be getting a bunch of these. And to the point about parking, it is important that we get to evaluate that as it comes. But thank you for your points on that. And with that, if Commissioner Barnwell doesn't want to weigh in, then we will move for a motion. All right. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion if you want.
I'll second.
What's the motion?
What's the motion? Commissioner Wiscombe.
My motion is to go ahead with the initiation for the zoning at 2020 Chapala Street from OR zone to CG zone, and then bring it back to Planning Commission with a further discussion of parking. Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Great. May we have a roll call vote, please, Mrs. Garza?
Thank you, Chair Wardlow. Commissioner Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe?
Yes.
Commissioner DeLuccio?
Yes.
Vice Chair Boss?
Yes.
And Chair Wardlow?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. That brings us to item 4 on our agenda, which is the 1269 Farella Road, which has been continued, which was continued from December 19th, but has been canceled pursuant to the Permit Streamlining Act. The project is deemed approved by the Single Family Design Board, action taken on October 21st, 2024. So with that, we will move on to the administrative portion of our agenda, and we will start with the appointment and liaison roles. So can we please put up the 2024 committee liaison roles? And then if it's all right with staff, I think that we should just kind of go through line by line. I think I will ask commissioners if they'd like to change their current position, given that really the changes are likely to be taking on some of Commissioner Lodge's positions, as well as allocating some to our newest commissioner, Commissioner Peterson. Is that all right with everybody, that we just kind of go line by line? Cool. Ooh. Can we make it a little bigger? Oh, I guess we all have it here. I now can't see my screen because I have this thing. How do I just, okay, cool. All right. Okay, so we'll start with the Airport Commission. So as of now, oh wait, but you don't have the, can we go to the 2024 liaison one? The one that was sent around earlier so that we can see what everybody has now.
Chair Wardlow, 1 second, let me just drop it in our hearing folder.
No worries,
For
that's fine.
Ms. Arciniega to pull up.
And then I assume you guys can take notes and just move people around as we go through it?
Correct, yes.
I don't think there should be too much changes. Awesome. That would be great. No, she does. All right, thank you so much. Okay, so we'll run through these, and then commissioners weigh in if you want to do something differently than what I'm saying, okay? So first, the Airport Commission. So as of now, we have DeLucio as the primary and Boss as the secondary. Is everyone comfortable keeping that as is? Great. Next, we have ABR. So obviously, this was Commissioner Lodge's as the primary. Commissioner Barnwell, would you be interested in taking this as the primary?
Yes.
Great. And then Commissioner Vice Chair Boss, are you comfortable staying as say what?
Yes.
Okay. Next, we have the Creeks Restoration Advisory Committee. This was Commissioner Lodge's. Is Commissioner Boss interested in this?
Yes.
As a primary? Great. Commissioner Wiscombe, are you comfortable staying on as the alternative?
Yes.
Great. Next, we'll have the downtown parking. Commissioner Boss is the primary, and Commissioner Bauke is the alternative. We'll keep this as the same. Great. Next, we have the Harbor Commission. We will have Commissioner Wiscombe is the primary, Commissioner Boss is the secondary. We'll keep this as the same.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Next, we have the Historic Landmark Commission. We have DeLucio as the primary, and we have Bauke as the secondary. But Commissioner Wiscombe, would you like to be the secondary?
Yes, please.
All right, great. Then we have Parks and Recreation. We have Commissioner Wiscombe and myself. Commissioner Wiscombe, would you like to stay on as the primary?
I can unless someone else would like it.
Which one is it?
Parks and Recreation Commission? No? Okay, I'll stay on as primary.
All right. Next, we have the Single Family Design Board. This was Commissioner Lodge's and mine. I'm hoping that Commissioner Peterson may be interested in being the primary.
Yeah, I'll do the primary.
Wonderful. And I'll stay on as an alternative. Then we have the Staff Hearing Officer. I believe Commissioner Boss would like to not to switch up on this?
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner DeLucio, would you be interested in taking on as primary?
Yes.
Wonderful. So DeLucia will take one primary. I will stay on as an alternate. Next, we have the Sustainability Council Committee. This was one that Commissioner Lodge was primary on. I know that Commissioner Bauke is not here today, but I do believe that he may be interested in this position. Is anybody else interested, or is the commission comfortable with Commissioner Bauke taking this on as a primary?
He's okay, yeah.
Is that all right with staff?
Yes, Chair
Okay.
Wardlow.
Great. Then we have the Transportation Committee. And we have Commissioner Barnwell as the primary and DeLucia as the alternative. Would you guys like to keep this as is?
It's okay with me to keep it, yes.
All right, great. Then we have the Water Commission, just making sure, okay. And we have Barnwell and Wiscombe on this now. And are you all comfortable keeping this as is?
I am.
Great. Then we have the Objective Design Standards. And this is Commissioner Bauke and myself. I think we can keep this as is. And then we have the De La Guerra Plaza Working Group. This was something that Commissioner Lodge and Commissioner Wiscombe were involved in. Commissioner Wiscombe, would you like to stay on as the primary?
Yes, and Madam Chair, do you have another primary? Commissioner Lodge replaced someone as primary. I don't remember who it was on that committee.
I think you were both primary for that committee.
Yeah, we're both.
I would like to be on that one, too.
Okay.
We're both primary,
Yeah.
but I was going to suggest that, it's got two planning commissioners on it, no alternate.
Great.
I'd like to be on
DeLucia,
that.
would you like to do it?
Yes, please.
Perfect. Next, we will have the Water Vision Stakeholders Group. We have Commissioner Bauke on this as of now. I believe that we can keep Commissioner Bauke on this. And then we have the State Street Advisory Committee. We can keep Commissioner Bauke on this as well. And that's it. Do we need to make a motion or anything, or are we good?
Mrs. Barza, do we have any public comment?
Thank you, Chair Wardlow. I don't have any virtual participants, and we did not receive any written correspondence, and there's no one in the room. So I will give it back to the commission.
So to Chair Wardlow, to your question, yes, a motion to approve as you all read.
Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2024 piece, I'm sorry, 2025 Planning Commission liaison list.
I'll second that.
Can we have a roll call vote, Mrs. Barza?
Thank you, Chair Wardlow. Commissioner Barnwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe,
Yes.
Commissioner DeLucia,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Wardlow,
Yes.
and then Commissioner Boss.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you all very much. That was not painful, so thanks for everybody for sailing through that and everybody's work to support all these different committees. That brings us to Section B, Committee and Liaison Reports. Vice Chair Boss, do you have any staff hearing officers?
I do not, no.
All right. Does anyone else have any liaison reports or commission updates?
I do.
You do?
Yes.
Okay. Vice Chair Boss.
I believe Commissioner Lodge and I served in some liaison capacity to the earthquake centennial. And in case you did not receive the email, they've announced a date for a special event and a series of events this year. So I'll get that out to the commission, but we are in year 100.
All right. And then is there any discussion on subcommittees and workshops at this time? Okay. Well, wonderful. That brings us to, it is now 2:03, and that concludes our January 16th, 2025 Planning Commission hearing. Our next hearing is tentatively scheduled for Thursday, February 6th, I believe. Yes, 2025. And thank you all very much, and I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day.